Hello, Wildlife Society. I'm Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland, a proud member of the Pueblo of Laguna. Thank you to Ed Arnett for the gracious invitation to share a few words with a group of people who truly value wildlife and interconnected ecosystems. As I join you all from the ancestral homelands of the Anacostan and Piscataway people in Washington, D.C., our world is facing a global climate crisis that not only impacts the communities where people live, but also the rich habitats for plants and animals. It's the challenge of our lifetime, but the good news is that with great challenges come great opportunities. Protecting our forests and public lands is the centerpiece of President Biden's America the Beautiful initiative, which is a 10-year locally led effort to conserve and restore the lands and waters that bind us together as Americans. It is, at its core, a call to action for all of us to do more for the planet, for the economy, and for future generations. The initiative is inclusive and collaborative. It's about supporting locally led and voluntary efforts with ranchers and farmers and private landowners. It's about honoring tribal sovereignty and lifting up indigenous-led conservation. It's about access to the outdoors for all communities. It's about using science and traditional knowledge to guide how we conserve, connect, and restore the lands, waters, and wildlife upon which we all depend. The work that the Wildlife Society has done for decades is a model of that collaborative conservation that America the Beautiful seeks to embrace. This work cannot be possible without all of your efforts. When I was growing up, my dad would take me and my siblings outside every chance he had. On those hikes, we were able to enjoy springs and rivers that ran through the forests and walk along the beaches. We even went canoeing at a place called Dismal Swamp, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Those experiences were invaluable and taught me to love and appreciate the outdoors. And it was during time spent with my grandpa in Mesita, our village at the Laguna Pueblo, that I learned our obligations to steward the earth. I would spend summers in the cornfield with my grandpa where he passed our own agricultural traditions down to me as we tended the cornfields that our pueblo has cultivated since time immemorial. He taught me about how precious water is, about how the snow in the mountains fed the river, which then fed our fields. He taught me to take from the earth only what we can use and not more. Traditional knowledge has been cultivated over millennia, and as we face the climate crisis, it's an invaluable resource that must be acknowledged and elevated. The truth is, if we are going to be successful in tackling the climate and biodiversity crises, we must empower the original stewards of these lands. From wildfire prevention to managing drought and famine for millennia, our ancestors used nature-based approaches to coexist with mountains and deserts, oceans and rivers, and the plethora of wildlife and their habitats. As communities continue to face the effects of climate change, Indigenous knowledge will benefit the federal government's efforts to bolster resilience and protect all communities. As the first Native American Cabinet Secretary, I carry these valuable perspectives with me. My responsibility to future generations is ingrained in me by my culture and traditions. But I believe we all have that obligation to the future. President Biden has ushered in a new era of respect for Indigenous knowledge, and at Interior, we're putting actions behind that commitment. That includes partnering with Native communities to co-steward our public lands and waters. This month, the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service issued new guidance that will facilitate and support agreements with tribes, Alaska Native organizations, and the Native Hawaiian community to collaborate in the co-stewardship of federal lands and waters. In addition to co-stewardship policies are the opportunities to return lands to tribes. Earlier this year, I celebrated the return of the Bison Range to the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes in Montana. It meant so much to those communities to see signs at the range in the tribe's native language. I was honored to hear singers summon the buffalo with their traditional songs. Likewise, the Door Shack Fish Hatchery in Idaho is now under the management of the Nez Perce tribe. After careful work to officially transfer that responsibility, the tribe is eagerly helping young Native students to obtain their degrees in fish hatchery management from the local community college. And tribal leadership is sharing their knowledge with the Fish and Wildlife Service. By incorporating Indigenous knowledge into our work and ensuring we're leading with science-based decisions, we can restore balance to nature. Though the future looks challenging, I know that with folks like the Wildlife Society and the talented professionals at the Department of the Interior, we can leave a better future for generations to come. The Biden-Harris administration is committed to partnering with communities across the country in this endeavor, and we know we can't do this alone. I appreciate everything all of you do every day, and I'm grateful for the chance to speak with you. I hope you enjoy the rest of this year's conference.